Chapter 4 of Tractate Megillah largely discusses the laws of the holiness of the synagogue, Torah scrolls, and similar. The first Mishnah states, if a town sells their town square, they can use the proceeds to buy a synagogue. If they sold a synagogue, they can only purchase an ark. If they sold an ark, they can only purchase wrappings for a Torah. If they sold wrappings, they can only buy scriptural books. If they sold those, they can only buy a Torah scroll with the proceeds. You cannot buy any of these with lesser sanctity by selling any of these, not even with leftover money. The Gemara says that some say a town square has no sanctity, so it can be sold for anything. We were discussing the ark of a small village. If it's from a large village, some say you can't sell that at all, as it's essentially public property. This is discussed along with some quick points on the division of the land of Israel to the 12 tribes. There's further points on a synagogue, if you can disassemble and sell it to build a new one, if you can sell the bricks. Some specifically disallowed renting the old bricks for other purposes. Also, articles used for a mitzvah can be thrown out afterwards, things like a sukkah, a lulav, a shofar, and tzitzis. Some items themselves have sanctity and holiness and can't be thrown out. Things like tefillin, a mezuzah, a container for a Torah scroll, and tefillin covers and straps. Some hold a lectern falls into the latter category, as the Torah is sometimes placed directly on it, and the same by the curtains of the ark. Similarly, an old ark can be deconstructed to be rebuilt into a smaller ark, but not a lectern. An old ark's curtains can be reused as wrappings for a Torah scroll, but not for a scriptural book, like a chumash. There's more points on this and some laws of ritual impurity in a synagogue, if there's a corpse there for some reason, and how to remove it. Some say the wrapping cloths for a Torah scroll, when they're old, should be repurposed as burial shrouds. Some say an old, worn Torah scroll should be buried alongside a Torah scholar. All of this is discussed further, along with points on the proper manner of wrapping a scroll and text and similar. New Mishnah, a public synagogue may not be sold to an individual, as its level of holiness is then reduced. Others disagree, saying that then it should also be disallowed to sell a synagogue from a large city to a small city. The Gemara says that the response to that would be that there's still sanctity if it's by a smaller city, but not so by an individual. The answer to that would be, yeah, but there's still a clear reduction of sanctity, as the verse says, with the multitude of people is the glory of the king. New Mishnah, townspeople can sell a synagogue on condition that if they want, it could be returned back to them. Others say that they can sell it permanently, besides for it being used as a bathhouse, tannery, mikveh, or laundromat. Some say it could be sold to be used as a courtyard, and then the buyer could do whatever he wants with it. The Gemara says this point that you should sell a synagogue with the stipulation that it should be returned if you want, that's problematic, as if they use it in between, they're benefiting off of it. So it's essentially interest, which is not allowed. So we say that this is like the rule that interest is allowed if it's only in one aspect. This is discussed further along with points as to how far away from a place of prayer you need to be while using the restroom. It also talks about the importance of making Kiddush, the blessing over a cup of wine, in a proper manner, and other good traits. There are further proper actions and traits listed that different sages said resulted in them having a long life. Things like giving charity, not showing anger, wearing tefillin, not looking at a wicked person, and others. New Mishnah. A synagogue that fell into ruin still has its sanctity, so you can't eulogize someone in it. Do labor like twisting ropes or spreading nets in it. You can't spread out fruits to dry on the roof, and you can't use it as a shortcut. A verse is brought as a source. If grass grows in a ruined synagogue, you shouldn't uproot it, so that way people will grieve. The Gemara clarifies these points and says that if the synagogue is desolate, you shouldn't take care of the synagogue to allow grass to grow. It also says not to make calculations in a synagogue, and the negative things that will occur if you do. It also says not to just walk into a synagogue to escape heat or rain, but if you need to call somebody out of the synagogue, when you enter, you should say a verse of Torah while inside, or at least ask a child within to tell you what verse he's learning, or at least just wait a while inside. There are further points on eulogizing people and how these sages eulogize particular individuals. It also speaks on the great honor of learning Torah. This is spoken on further, and some specific synagogues that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rested on. There are further points on the holy sanctity at synagogues, and not to use one as a shortcut, and some of the laws of respect that apply to a cemetery. New Mishnah. Some points on readings from the Torah. There are 4 special readings done during the month of Adar. If the Rosh Chodesh, the first of the month, fell out on Shabbos, we read the portion of Shkalim. If it fell out during the week, we read that portion the prior Shabbos, with other caveats. And the next Shabbos, we read the portion of Zachor. The next Shabbos, we read the portion of the Para Adoma. The 4th Shabbos, we read the portion of HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. And the next Shabbos, we go back to normal. We also read a special portion on any holiday that falls out on a Shabbos, including Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah, Purim, fasts, Ma'amodos, as discussed in Tractate Tainus, and on Yom Kippur. All of these individual portions are discussed along with their proper procedure. Details on which parts to read of the Shkalim portion are brought, and the proper times, along with also the Zachor portion and the others. Basically, the different possible combinations of dates by readings are essentially, as discussed, these four, depending on how the calendar works out. The other points are also discussed. New Mishnah. On Passover, we read the portion of the festivals. On Shavuos, we read the 7 weeks portion. On Rosh Hashanah, on the 7th month, on the 1st of the month. On Yom Kippur, after the death, on the 1st of Sukkot, the festival portion. The rest of the days, the portion on the festival offerings. On Hanukkah, the portion of the offerings of the 10 tribes' princes to the tabernacle. On Purim, we read, and Amalek came. On Rosh Chodesh, and on your new moons. On Ma'amodes, we read about the creation. On fast days, the portion on blessings and curses. We don't interrupt that in the middle, and one person reads all of them. Mondays, Thursdays, and the preceding Shabbos afternoon, you read the regular Torah portion of the week, and then again on Shabbos. The source for all of this is, and Moshe proclaimed the festivals of God to the children of Israel, which means to read their portion at their proper time. The Gemara clarifies what to do on 2-day holidays. If you want to know the final result of every single one of the many Torah portions read, it should be in a standard prayer book. It also goes through the Haftorahs. The formatting for all of these are discussed. It also goes briefly through how to say the blessings, how to close the Torah scroll with positioning the seam in the middle, and to roll it out from the outer scroll and close it by tightening it from the inner roll. There are further points on this. The Torah should be read with the proper cantillation notes, or else you'll be buried bare of that mitzvah, and further points on the proper rolling of the wrappings of the Torah scroll. In addition to reading the portion on a holiday, Moshe decreed that you should study their laws too. The laws of Passover on Passover, the laws of Shavuos on Shavuos, and the laws of Sukkot on Sukkot. And with that, that's the end of chapter 4 and the entire Tractate Megillah.